What is up, Pitcherless family? Welcome to another episode of Hacks and Jacks, the 150th episode of Hacks and Jacks. Scott, you've been here since episode 1. It's a pretty awesome milestone to reach 150 episodes. I've been here for the past 2 years and happy to jump aboard. But, did you ever think we'd make it this far?
So we got the podcast was nominated for Best Fantasy Baseball Podcast in its first year, and I've steadily dragged it downhill since then. So I'm happy I haven't hit bottom yet. Like there's still lower to go.
Shout out to former host Joe Galena, who carried it for what was that, 3 years, Scott, that he was aboard, and then I guess it was 22, 23, and 24. And then I jumped on 25 and 26. Yeah. So
he spent 3 years making fantasies become realities with his sign off every single episode. So we still love you, Joe. I believe he's still writing with Pitchers. He just had to take a step back from this kind of stuff. So, love the guy. Miss him dearly. I'm hoping next time I'm in New York or something, I can run into him. He's like the most New York dude ever. I remember the first time I saw it, like we would be on camera and he would like always have a hat and a headphone on. I had no idea. And then one day he just kind of like turns around a little bit. And I was like, you have a ponytail? Like that's one of those things in like this virtual world. Like that's one of the things you just might not notice about a guy. I thought he just pushed his hair back.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One of those hidden gems you just don't catch on a webcam. Well, no ponytails here, Scott, I promise. At least not for the foreseeable future. I don't think I can grow hair that long on my head anymore ever. So getting old. Let's jump right into news and notes. We'll start in the NL Central. A lot of guys moving and grooving here as rosters are shuffling around Memorial Day. Cubs third baseman Matt Shaw goes to the IL. Chicago calls up Pedro Ramirez to replace him. Ramirez has gotten a few at-bats here and there. One guy that the Cubs also called up, Kevin Alcantara, has barely seen the field. And frankly, I think he's the more interesting prospect. He's just not getting at-bats. Scott, what do you think about Ramirez and Alcantara?
Well, I mean, for fantasy purposes this year, there's nothing, right? Like you can't really be excited because they're not going to play. Alcantara is one of their top 5 prospects. He's this big, long, lanky's the wrong word because he's much stronger than me. But he's like 6'6", and he's got, at least in the minor leagues, there's, a couple questions about whether that strikeout rate's going to work out. I mean, it's in the 30% so far this year in AAA. I mean, albeit with 15 home runs in 41 games, right? So like he was hitting the ball really hard, but he strikes out a ton. He finally gets a start today. What's he doing his first at bat? He strikes out. So that's kind of what to expect from Alcantara. I doubt he'll get enough playing time or be given a long enough rope to try to work through his strikeout issues if they can be worked through the major league level. So that one won't work. And Ramirez, like he got some playing time. He's not, he's, I guess, a slightly more well-regarded prospect overall. He's got a better hit tool. Maybe there'd be some intrigue in like points leagues if he was getting some run. I don't think there's a ton of power here. Again, he hit some extra home runs this year in AAA, but overall, this isn't a guy who's going to just come out raking. It's more of a, 10, 12 home run kind of bat that could steal some bases if the Cubs felt like letting him. But otherwise, there's, neither one's really going to play enough to be of any interest in redraft or the keepers. You'd have to be talking about full on dynasty to have any real interest in these guys right now.
When we look at Kevin Alcantara, are we looking at like a sugar-free James Wood or what are we?
Spencer Jones is closer to the kinds of things I worry about with Kevin Alcantara. But by build, it's more like O'Neal Cruz, this big, long guy he doesn't quite have, O'Neal Cruz's raw power or speed, but he's this big, long, lanky guy with power and strikeout problems.
Gotcha. We'll move on to the Pirates, who called up a prospect as well. Esmerlyn Valdez came into Thursday night with 2 hits, both of them home runs, and 9 strikeouts in less than 20 plate appearances. So another guy with contact issues, but what appears to be some pop in the bat. Does this matter at all for fantasy, Scott?
I mean, No, he's played quite a bit since getting called up, but then he got sent back down. So if he were to get a call back up, maybe if he got like a full run of playing time, he's got some upside overall as a prospect in the power department. Really kind of had a nice little breakout last year. Has hit pretty good in AAA so far, but he needs a better role before we can really start thinking about him.
We'll stay in the NL Central for one more note. Kind of buried the lead on this. KeBryan Hayes goes to the IL, but the Reds still somehow upgrade at third base because Eugenio Suarez is back from the injured list. Suarez, obviously a streaky power hitter. What do we think for the rest of the year for Eugenio?
Yeah, I mean, if the longer you look toward like for Eugenio Suarez, the longer things should eventually work themselves back out where he hits a bunch of home runs. Like obviously he can't get to the 49 that he hit last year. There's just not enough time, right? Now what he could do though is like for the rest of the season, he could still hit like 20 of them, right? From now to the end of the season. It's just going to be a matter of like when does he get hot, right? When do we see that happen? And when I look at a guy like this, I'm like, hey, what's the problem? Like, why aren't we seeing, as many home runs, things like that? I mean, the biggest thing right now is this season in, again, relatively limited playing time. He's had about 30 games. It's way too many pop outs. And a lot of things that would normally be fly balls for him have been line drives. That's why you haven't seen like this huge home run number in this park. He's not pulling the ball quite as much either, but that, all of that is less of a concern. This comes up a lot where, if especially a guy like this, where someone, he's not hitting well and someone goes, hey man, I went to his Statcast page and all the sliders, they don't look good, right? Like I'm really concerned, like under the hood. I'm like, well, here's the thing. When you're not playing well, your Statcast sliders are bad, right? Like they just are. When you're popping out a bunch, yeah, your Statcast sliders are going to be real bad because pop outs are terrible, right? In some cases, they can't possibly be a hit, right? If the infield fly rules on, they couldn't be a hit no matter what. They certainly, like, you can't even get on base with that pop out. It's like one of the worst. Like, you can strike out and I think steal first, right? Like, there are times when a pop out cannot do anything for you. So, his Statcast slider is blue because he's been cold, right? Not because he's bad all of a sudden, but because he's been bad. And when he's hot, a bunch of those sliders, at least for that period of time, would turn red. And eventually they'll be more red than blue and it'll all work out. But you can't just, the biggest thing you'll see from Statcast sliders right now is it all about bad luck? If I look at his expected stats and they're really good, and his real stats are bad, that's a luck, that's a luck problem. But you have to remember, Statcast sliders cannot distinguish between bad and cold, right? They can't distinguish between hot and good, and they can't distinguish between bad and cold because for that period of time, they are the same, right? It's just the matter of having the ability to analyze and say like, hey, but what can he be long-term? Do I think the bottom is falling out for Eugenio Suarez? No, he's taking walks. There's still some hard contact. Obviously, his average exit velocity is low because of the pop outs, but the hard hit rate is low. Again, that's a bit of a pop out problem. I do think those numbers will go back up just from his history. And because, he's been an elite home, he's been 30 plus home runs basically every year since 2018. The only times he hasn't gotten to 30 home runs are in 2020 because he only played 57 games and he still hit 15 home runs then. So he's well on his way to get past that. And then in 2023, he got 22 home runs. But keep in mind, though, that he still had 96 RBI that season, right? So for now, I'm going to say the bottom hasn't fallen out. I know he's 34 years old, but the bottom hasn't fallen out yet. Everything's going to be okay, but you will need to give it some time.
Well, we'll move from the NL Central over to the AL West, where we go from power guy to speed guy. Victor Robles is back from the IL for the Seattle Mariners. Robles, we'll call him a contact and speed guy. Might only be a speed guy at this point of his career. Scott, what do we think?
Yeah, well, I think a lot more if he played against right-handed pitching. But the Mariners have now constructed a roster with Canzone and Luke Raley being in the, being in the lineup against all the righties. That only leaves lefties for Robles. So there, I cannot think of a player who has provided any kind of long-term value on the short side of a platoon. You just don't play enough, right? Maybe for like a 2-week period, like recently your Orioles have faced a ton of left-handed starters the last 2 weeks. So like there'd be some value in these small pockets, but then you'll go a 2-week period where you face 2 of them and Robles starts 4 times, right? So it just, if he were to start playing against even like half of the righties, we might be looking at like, hey, there's a speed streamer. But there's a couple other guys right now that can be speed streamers that will actually play, even if they're not that good at hitting, like Nasim Nunez or Jake McCarthy, or, the guy who's like sort of on again, off again, falling down the list, moving up at Jacob Marcy. There's plenty of other speed streamers you can get who play. And, that's going to be the big problem with Robles unless he gets a new role.
We'll stay in that division where the Angels have made a couple of changes to their roster. Josh Lowe is sent down to AAA Salt Lake City after an extremely slow start to the season, and Yohan Moncada is sent to the IL. The Angels call up Donovan Walton and Wade Meckler. Lowe, obviously cuttable at this point. Moncada probably can be cut. Walton and Meckler, either one of them interesting?
Wade Meckler has some intrigue, right? So Meckler is a sort of slappy kind of hitter. Like he does not hit many home runs. He was with San Francisco for most of his minor league career. And in all of 2025, across all the majors, he played 90 games and hit 1 home run. Now his power was way up this year in that he had 4 home runs in 33 games, which also isn't very many. And he already has one here, like he doesn't have much power. He doesn't have much speed. He's not going to do either of those things, but in a points league, I do think Meckler can keep the strikeout and walk rate pretty good, right? So in the minors, he, always had a strikeout rate below 20%, pretty much. The walk rate was above 10%. Here in the majors, I think it'll probably be around those numbers. And he might slap the ball around enough and get to play enough. So far, he's sat against the one lefty that the Angels have seen since he's been called up, but there might be something here in deeper points leagues. But that's it. That's it though. Like he can hit singles and some doubles and not strike out too much. That's something.
We'll take a quick moment of silence for Andrew McCutchen. Uncle Larry was DFA'd by the Texas Rangers. I really hope this isn't the end of his decorated career, but maybe there's a team out there who needs a veteran right-handed outfielder bat somewhere for a playoff run.
There's a team in the Midwest that could possibly use him. They would just have to cut their own horribly struggling DH only 38-year or 30. Well, this guy's only 35, but the Pirates have been playing with Marcell Ozuna, who cannot play any position besides DH. Apparently he's a very good locker room guy, but so is Kutch. And Kutch is also a legend in Pittsburgh. I don't know. Like, I know they're not going to do it, but like, I don't see how they'd be getting less from Kutch than they've gotten from Ozuna, who had like a hot weekend and a half and has been otherwise, terrible.
Wouldn't it be funny if McCutchen signs a 1-day contract with the intention of retiring and the Pirates are like, hey, wait a minute. Hey, just
hold on a minute. Hey,
before you go,
grab that bat and just, let's just take a look, right? For old time's sake.
Well, Andrew McCutchen DFA'd by the Texas Rangers. Hopefully he gets picked up somewhere else. On to the NL West. A bunch of outfielders headed to the IL. Colorado send Mickey Moniak to the IL. Lourdes Gurriel for the Diamondbacks is injured and goes to the IL. And then Teoscar Hernandez also to the IL for the Dodgers. So you've got 3 NL West outfielders, all 3 some level of fantasy relevance. The Diamondbacks have called up Tommy Troy. The Dodgers have called up Ryan Ward. And oh, by the way, Pavin Smith is back for Arizona as well. Any fantasy ramifications from those myriad of transactions there in the NL West?
So in like deep leagues, Tommy Troy is a top 100-ish prospect. He he might, get hot enough here and there to be something. He's got a little bit of speed. He can hit for some average. He's always done that in the minor leagues. Although that's like one of the things that doesn't always immediately show up in the majors because you're adjusting to a whole lot more hitting, and he doesn't hit the ball terribly hard. So it's hard to say exactly how that'll work out. But, in a 12-team league, I'm not probably picking up Troy. And just to talk about the guys who got hurt, obviously Teoscar Hernandez, you have to just hold. He's been quite good this year. He's always streaky because he's an aggressive power hitter. That's just the way he is. But there are a few sources of RBI better than Teoscar Hernandez because he gets to hit in the middle of that Dodger lineup and just scores drives in a bunch of runners. But if you for some reason were playing Lourdes Gurriel, I think in a standard league, unless you have an unlimited or wide open IL, you can let him go. Moniak's a tough one. I know a lot of people have really enjoyed sort of the hot streaks they've seen from Mickey Moniak. As anyone who reads my hitter list knows, I'm not a big Mickey Moniak fan. This IL stint may not be terribly long. We haven't heard much of a timeline yet, and he does already have 12 home runs. But it's also worth noting that he was starting to really not hit well of late. So since May 6th, so he had like he had like 3 home runs in 2 games, had a really, nice little homestand. But since then, really since May 6th, he's been objectively bad. So if your IL is full, and these are the people I'm really trying to talk to, if your IL is full, and you've been looking at the fact that over his last 53 plate appearances, Mickey Moniak is hitting 167. And that does include like his last homestand, he had 2 hits, right? He had a single and a double. You do not have to keep Mickey Moniak. Again, if your IL is open, always fill it up. You should always use every IL spot you have. There is no value in cutting a guy when you could have put him on the IL, unless like your IL is full. Right? Because even if you wanted to even if you're like, well, I'll just cut him when the next guy comes on the IL, wait till then, right? Who cares? Unless there's absolutely no chance you'd ever activate them into your lineup, just put them on the IL. So with that said, Moniak is not someone in a 12-team league you have to keep, right? Once you start getting to 15-team or like even a deeper 12 with like several extra bench spots and 5 outfielders, then like maybe in these scenarios where like, yeah, I do really need a lot of power and there's none of it on the wire, I might as well hold Mickey Moniak. It's like, okay, fine, especially if you have an open IL slot, but otherwise not a big fan. And, as far as like the replacements for those guys, I think the one that's going to draw the most attention, Tommy, I already talked about Tommy Troy, but the Dodgers did call up Ryan Ward. And I think if you are looking at like the stats of Ryan Ward, you're going to wonder like, how is this dude not in his organization's top 10? Or in many cases, his top 20, like the top 20, right? Like Ryan Ward is seen as a very, very low end prospect. However, he has 30 home runs in each of the last 2 seasons in the minor leagues, right? He played in AAA in 2024. He played in AAA in 2025. He had 33 home runs. Last season, 36 home runs. The batting average was really high. The strikeout rate was much better last year. He's already got 6 home runs this year. You might be thinking like, wow, why aren't we talking about this prospect more? And part of that's because he's older, right? Can't be old because he's much younger than me. But he was 27 last year in AAA, hitting those 36 home runs in the PCL, which is an incredibly hitter-friendly environment, both home and on the road. Like Oklahoma's kind of in the middle in terms of like the ballpark, but you get to play a lot of games in a lot of parks that are really, really friendly to hitters. The environments are all very friendly. It's not just that these parks are small. It's very, very dry, very hot. So in the majors, let's assume that Ryan Ward gets to play against all the righties. This is on the big side of the platoon. Even then, this is a guy who like maybe could hit a lot, like maybe hit some home runs and bat like 220. I just don't see a lot more than that in Ryan Ward. I think the plate discipline would be fine. He wouldn't be usable in points leagues. I don't think his OBP would be above 300, although he has walked more in each of, he has walked more last season and this season. So maybe he can get to a 300 OBP. There's just not much here. Don't let that minor league track record fool you. It's just a slightly above average aged guy who's probably more like a quad A player. And quad A players can absolutely do that when they heat up in the PCL. You can make these huge numbers, but that's why like his WRC plus of 132 is like good. But if you did that kind of number in the majors, you'd have a much better WRC plus because WRC plus is league adjusted. So like 132 is good. Don't get me wrong. It's very good. But like, it's 110 this year. That's pretty good. So he's like above average for a AAA hitter, which he better be because he's 28 years old.
We'll take a look at one more prospect moving over to the AL East. The Blue Jays call up Charles Macadoo. Macadoo, an infielder that they acquired in a deadline trade of Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to the Pirates. So Macadoo, a former Pirates prospect, comes to Toronto. Power, speed, not sure what he can do at the major league level. Will he get playing time in Toronto, Scott, you think?
Well, even if he did, I'm probably not that interested. He, he did show some speed, but with higher strikeout rates. The strikeout rate was a little better this year for Macadoo in the Myers. The walk rate was looking pretty good so far, but he doesn't bring a whole lot to the table for fantasy, especially because I don't think those stolen base numbers will translate to the major leagues all that well. He's not crazy fast. And the Blue Jays aren't super aggressive on the base pads to begin with. And I think what they're going to do with Macadoo is just kind of platoon him around with some of their lefties that are in the lineup, because they can move some guys around, they can play Ernie Clement just about anywhere. They may sneak Macadoo in here and there, but I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of run, especially because he's not an outfielder. And that's probably where there's the best opportunity, which is to platoon with a guy like Nathan Lukes or something.
And then last note here, Spencer Jones sent back to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre by the Yankees. Are we surprised?
I mean, no. The hit tool is just not ready. I don't know if it ever will be. The thing that is kind of a surprise is Anthony Volpe still with the team. I thought he'd get sent back down when Caballero came back, but he didn't. They've sort of moved some things around where Caballero is playing. He played some outfield. He's played some third base when they get Volpe in the lineup, and he hasn't been terrible. Granted, they haven't played him against every righty. He's mostly just playing against lefties. But hey, Anthony Volpe's doing something which matters in Dynasty, right? You're not trying to cut a 25-year-old quite yet. So that has some intrigue to it. But otherwise, yeah, that's about it. And nothing doing about Ahmed Rosario's recent 2-home-run game. You can ignore it.
And then last thing, Scott, MLB owners proposed a hard salary cap that would force 7 Major League Baseball teams to reduce their player payroll, and a salary floor that would force 15 teams to increase their player payroll. Do you have any thoughts you want to share on the podcast about a salary cap and or a salary floor with the upcoming negotiations between MLB and the Players Association?
I guess I just don't see why they're even discussing a cap. I don't think anyone's going to go for it. You can have taxes, but there's just no value in a ceiling. You'd have to have teams restructuring contracts. Like, what are you going to do? Grandfather in Shohei Ohtani's contract, which lasts a bazillion years. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you can't do that. You certainly can't introduce it quickly. Right. I thought the players had a proposal that was really good. We're likely to see some kind of salary floor because both sides win with a salary floor, right? MLB in theory gets more competitive teams that can bring more intrigue in, even in some of their, they just need to revenue share a little better, maybe raise a little more money. I don't know. And players have more opportunities to get paid because while a team like, formerly known as Oakland wouldn't be in, if they're below the floor, they need to sign somebody, right? They need to go give someone a shot. And it's not like they'll get nothing out of it. They'll be able to trade him if he's good, right? You know, lots of teams have done this, given a guy a shot. And if he's any good, you trade him out halfway through. It'll open the market for a lot of players. It'll make, you know, things a little bit more competitive maybe for some of these players to like try to get roles, because there's just going to be more. What stinks right now is if someone's owed a lot of, like if someone's going to be a big contract, there's like 3 or 4 teams that are in, right? There's like 3 or 4 teams that are going to be in on Scooble because they're the only ones that can afford it. But when you add a floor, it starts to become a little more interesting. Oh, hey, look, we got to spend the money. We know that we'll fill a stadium every 5th day, right? I mean, that's what Skeens does, you know? So I think it'd just be very interesting. But I care about a salary floor. The rest of it is for the players and owners to figure out. But they've got to do some kind of salary floor or decentivize bad performances, a lottery, whatever you got to do.
Well, the one thing that I'm rooting for is just absolute chaos. I want like a full-on MLB 2K10, like full redraft of the entire organization on all 30 teams. Like just redraft everybody. Like you're starting a new franchise mode with like a fantasy draft in MLB 2K10.
The Orioles season hasn't been that bad, right? You don't need to blow the whole thing up.
Can you tell, is that a red flag that your team's like not very good recently? Is that something?
Still 27% to make the playoffs.
How many Dodgers fans do you think would agree with me?
None. They already did the fantasy draft. They just bought them.
Well, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about Scott's top 150 hitters list after this. Welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. As always, I'm your host, Brett Ford, joined by Scott Chu, our senior analyst. Scott every week puts out a top 150 hitters list, the top 150 hitters list on Pitcher List. Scott, we've got risers, we've got fallers, and we've got a lot to cover this week. Some hitters who are rising up the list who, if you would have asked me about these guys 6 months ago, I'm not sure they'd even be on my radar. Let's start and take a look at a guy who's had a meteoric rise since the beginning of the season. It's Jordan Walker. He just keeps climbing the list.
Yeah. And, part of it is like just early on, as you all may remember, I was very apprehensive about Walker. And I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it bears repeating. That's because we've seen him get hot once and then cool off and not heat up again, right? Anyone can get hot once. Seeing Jordan Walker go up and down a couple times and never letting the bottom fall out, that is the mark of the mature hitter, right? We call them rolling charts because everybody's go up and down, right? Everyone's strikeout rate rises and falls. Their WOBA rises and falls. All these things, like it goes up and down. Their slug goes up and down. The guys that are really good, just don't let it go down that far before it starts bouncing back up, right? They make the adjustment, whatever it needs to, if something's broken, they fix it. If pitchers are attacking them differently, they figure it out, and they keep doing this over and over and over again. And that keeps them in this high level of play for very long periods of time. So like, for example, with Aaron Judge at the very top of the list. And I kid you not, like just recently someone said to me like, hey, I'm worried about Judge, right? I traded for Judge and I'm really worried. He's been really bad since I traded for him. And that's a totally normal thing to feel. But that's why you then go look at the rolling chart. You're like, he actually does this all the time. Aaron Judge is this bad. Like 2, 3, 4 times a season, he'll be bad for like 2-3 weeks. And then he'll go in almost less time, be the best hitter on the planet and just rip the cover off a bunch of baseballs for 2 weeks. And it all in the end equals out to like one of the best hitters of the last 10 years. So with Jordan Walker, again, anyone can get up once, but the more he stops the bleeding quick and gets back to the previous level of play, which he's now done like 2-3 times, that's when I get really, really excited. So are there still some like red flags in the overall profile? A little bit, right? Could the ground balls come back? Maybe, right? Could strikeouts be a problem again? Maybe. But because he's like kind of fought through some of these and gotten back to where he needs to be so quickly, I will continue to move him up.
We'll talk about another guy who has just surprised the heck out of me this season. That's San Francisco Giants infielder Casey Schmitt. He's climbed up the ranks all the way into the top 75 hitters. Um, Scott, what is Casey Schmitt doing that we like so much?
Yeah, so another guy, we've seen him be hot before. There was a version of Casey Schmitt last season who had some major contact issues, but was making some pretty good decisions at the plate and had a bunch of power, right? And that was cool, but it was also like just not very sustainable for him. The contact issues really got in the way. He wasn't able to sustain his success and really just kind of left our field of relevance and started the season as a sort of platoon guy for the Giants. This version of Casey Schmitt using our process plus stats is a bit more interesting. The decision making isn't good because he's being very aggressive. The reason he's being so aggressive is because he's figured out how to make better contact, right? The guy is showing plus to like almost plus contact ability and keeping all that power, right? So he's swinging more, but he's getting better at hitting the ball and he's retaining all that power. That's someone I could be really interested in. Could there be some streakiness? Yes, we do. Lots of things can cause streakiness, right? Every player is streaky to some extent, but the biggest sort of streakiness indicators that I see are either guys who are just really bad at contact. Think like Nick Kurtz, who's really up and down. Kyle Schwarber, really up and down. These are guys who are like really good decision makers with really bad contact ability. So they make the right decisions, but they go through these periods where they just can't hit the stupid ball, even though they know when they should swing at it and probably where it's going to be. They just kind of miss. That's one way to be streaky because eventually they make whatever micro adjustment needs to be made. And they're like, oh, I'm swinging at the right pitches and I'm hitting the crap out of them. Right. The other kind of streakiness is guys who are really, really aggressive, even with good contact ability. Right. They're really aggressive and they have good contact ability and their streakiness looks different. So with like guys like Nick Kurtz, Kyle Schwarber, you see these cold streaks and they're always marked by the same thing. Really high strikeout rates. High strikeout rate, which turns into like bad batting averages. And it may be like a home run here and there, but just not good numbers because they're striking out too much and hitting too many, fly ball outs, that kind of thing. These aggressive guys, when they get hot and then cool off, it's usually because it's a bunch of bad batted balls in play, right? If you think back a couple of years, Austin Hayes was the king of this, right? He'd be really streaky, but the strikeouts stayed really good. Anyway, I say all that to say with Casey Schmitt, that's what I'll be looking for on the cold streaks. Like, as long as the strikeout rate doesn't spike and the contact ability stays good, I can live with him going cold sometimes because that's just the way baseball works. But if I see the contact ability fall out, right, the strikeout rate maybe go way up, then I'll have to reconsider whether Casey Schmitt is truly a top 75 bat. But this version of him has that kind of upside and more.
Well, let's move on to a pair of Orioles catchers, actually. We'll talk about both of them. We have Samuel Basallo rising up the list this week. Meanwhile, Adley Rutschman has fallen several spots. Kind of a weird dichotomy between the two catchers in Baltimore. What's going on with these guys?
So with Basallo, it's very important to remember that this is, a top 5 prospect in baseball, right? I think sometimes that gets overlooked and he doesn't get to DH quite as much lately. Now, again, that might be because of something I mentioned earlier, which is that the Orioles keep facing a bunch of lefties, right? Like in their last 12 games, I want to say it's like 7 or 8 lefties, right? Like that's a ridiculous number that if you just think about every lineup in the majors, like most of them have 1 or 2 out of 5 guys be lefties. So like only, on any given team, like 20 to 40% of their starters are lefties. And for whatever reason, the Orioles have just run into every single one of them on every team they've played. So Basallo's got some less playing time right now. But what he also has is elite power, right? The guy is some of the best raw power in the minors. And he's showing it at the major league level, right? 44 games. He's got 8 home runs. And I think that there could be even more there. I think he's done well to really sustain a good approach and a good sort of method to how he can be successful in the major leagues. It's not going to be these like big double-digit walk rates, right? That's not the kind of hitter he is. He's more aggressive than that, but he's kept the strikeout rates below 30% all month long, right? That rolling strikeout rate, it's gotten close. It's like touched 30 for like a day, but otherwise it's staying in the high 20s, which is fine. He's walking, a little less lately, but he's walking a little bit and then just hitting the ball really hard. So I love the upside there at catcher. I think the playing time has been down lately, but will start to come back when they don't play so many darn lefties. Again, we're talking like 4 of the last 6 games they've had a lefty starter, and Basallo just isn't playing against them much right now. But eventually, I think, they'll face more righties and they'll get more playing time. So don't let the fact he's only played 3 times in the last, 6 games or whatever, make you worried about Basallo. He's doing just fine. It's just a weird string of lefties. As for Rutschman, I'm glad he looks better than he did in the second half of 2024 and all of 2025. That part I'm happy about. The part I don't really know about yet is what exactly is he, right? So he does play more than Basallo right now, especially again, because there's all these lefties coming up. I think it'll be a little closer to even when they have a more even split of the kinds of guys they're facing. But I'm having a really hard time understanding what Adley Rutschman is at this point. Cause at one point I was like, okay, this is just a dude with like a super, super hit tool. And then, we'll kind of see how the rest of it goes. And then he showed some power for a hot second there. And then all the power went, I don't want to say it all went away, but for the month of May, I mean, Rutschman's only hitting 205 and he's slugging 386, right? Because I don't know what to make of him, the plate discipline is still good. He's hitting the ball fairly hard, but not all home run power. He's still getting to bat third. Like it's a lot of this good with bad. So he kind of becomes this back end catcher who you're not trying to replace, but also is probably in the bottom half of your league's catchers because catcher's a lot deeper these days.
He's certainly not one of those top tier guys, Scott. We talked about, the Drake Baldwins, the Shea Langoliers, Cal Raleighs, obviously a couple of those guys on the IL. But like you said, catcher's so much deeper this year, and maybe we see Basallo creep into that echelon. Probably not this year, but certainly in the near future. I think his bat is special. Now, granted,
the upside is there. Yeah, no, I mean the upside is there, right? Like there's just not that many hitters who have this kind of power, and he's not a catcher he's not just like catching for looks, right? It's not like he was a catcher, but really he's a DH, right? He's got a really good arm. He can catch, right? He can play the position defensively more than good enough to be a team's everyday catcher, right? So I think that'll be really interesting to see how that develops. And while Rutschman was once like sort of this guy who we thought was going to be long-term upper echelon of catchers, it hasn't quite worked out that way in large part because I don't know if he's still a 20 home run bat. He got there once in 2023, he hit 19 the following year, but was so bad in the second half of 2024, then bad for all of 2025. Basically he's been bad almost as much as he's been good. Adley Rutschman. And so when you look at his like overall numbers, he hits 255, slugs 418. Like that's fine, but it's not great. So again, still trying to figure out what this guy is. We're still trying to figure out what they both are, but one of them is more on the upswing and one might be more on the down.
Moral of the story is the Orioles need to move Basallo away from catcher because the last 2 times before Basallo that the Orioles spent draft capital on a catcher in the first round, they kind of fizzled out early in their careers. I'm looking at you, Matt Wieters.
I was waiting for you to say the name.
Yeah.
God, that gets me pumped up. Getting to throw a name like Matt Wieters on the podcast.
Matt Wieters catching strays in 2026.
Poor guy. He had a nice long career. How dare you?
He did. He was very good in other places as a mediocre catcher. Jake Burger is rising up the list this week. Burger, we saw him ebb and flow last year with things going as poorly as to have the Rangers send him down to AAA, and then he came back and smacked the ball out of the ballpark several times. Burger climbing the list into the top 100, I believe, this week. What do we like about the Rangers' first baseman?
Well, he's third base eligible in a lot of formats, which is helpful. It might even be all of them. He played he's not third base. He's just going to be first base. So we'll have to cut that out. But so Berger, the thing that has my attention more than anything, uh, isn't that like the strikeout rate's down a little bit lately. That's fine. It's that he's walking. This is a guy who, again, has all the marks of a streaky power hitter, but he's not one of the kinds that walks very much. And he is the type of guy that would really benefit from taking some walks and letting some balls go by, right? His career walk rate is 5.3%. That is considerably lower than league average. Just to be clear there. And his strikeout rate runs, it's not crazy high, but it runs in the upper 20s. And he just, a little bit of patience would go a long way for him, especially on, pitches outside the zone, just, cooling off, not even that much, right? He just doesn't need to chase quite so much. If he just slowed that down a little bit, especially because pitchers don't always throw him a ton of stuff in the zone, that could be a big change. So if he's able, I don't expect him to be like this 10% walk rate guy long term, although he has been that over the last 2 weeks or so. But if he could just be like slightly above average and walk, if he could have like a 8% walk rate for the rest of the season, he could just be a fixture in the list instead of a guy who's bouncing anywhere from like touching the top 100 to just off the list. That's how he makes the next step, I think, though. It's just like an 8% walk rate, 8 or 9. If he does that for any extended period of time, I think it would let him attack the pitches he needs to attack instead of having these like crazy 40% strikeout rate kind of spikes that we see from him from time to time. That could be a real difference maker.
And our last riser for this week, let's talk about Ryan Waldschmidt out in the outfield in Arizona. Waldschmidt called up a couple weeks ago. What is he showing you so far early in his career that has him rising up your rankings?
Well, one thing that always gets a guy to move up the rankings is a significant change in where they are in the batting order. And over this last week, that's happened to Ryan Waldschmidt. He went from batting 9th every day to batting 6th and now 5th, right? So, at first, the jump up was just against the lefties, so I wasn't entirely sure that happened over on Sunday. And then they just kept doing it. They're like, yeah, let's leave you up there. So Ryan Waldschmidt batting 5th on a lineup that is pretty, it's hard to even call it top heavy, but it is top heavy, right? The closer you are to Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll, the better. And like to a lesser extent, Geraldo Perdomo and Nolan Arenado. He's now right behind them. He's overtaken a guy who is very close to falling off the list in Ildemaro Vargas, right? Who's kind of just turned back into this slap hitter who doesn't really have much of anything special. But with Waldschmidt moving up to 5th really helps get more plate appearances, 2, more juice out of the balls he does hit. He doesn't have a home run yet in the majors. The strikeout rate is kind of high. I'd like to see that come down just a bit. He did well with that in the minor leagues. In the low minors, he hasn't even had 50. Oh, he's just over 50 games combined in AAA and majors. So I think with a little bit of time, he can fix that strikeout rate, but he's hitting 302. He's, putting the ball in play plenty, smacking a ton of line drives, which on one hand is somewhat indicative of luck, but on the other hand is something he did do in the minors last year. Coming into this season, the zone contact looks good. He doesn't chase much at all. I think this is a guy who could really be moving up. The power will come. I think this is a guy who could hit, 20 homers in a season given time. This season probably won't get quite that high, but he could steal 20 bases, I think, if he continues to play every day. And the D-backs are playing pretty well, right? Like they're still, I think they're about, they feel like a coin flip to make the playoffs right now. In this division, but I like the direction the D-backs are heading more than like the Padres or the Giants. So this team, I think, will need to be aggressive to win. And one way to do that is let your young guy run. And I think they'll let their top prospect, Waldschmidt, run. And again, just staying in Marte and Carroll and Perdomo and Arenado's orbit will help him pile up RBI that he never could have gotten at the bottom of the lineup.
Beautiful. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more of Scott's top 150 hitters list, the guys falling down the list after this. Welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. I'm your host, Brett Ford, here as always with Scott Chu, talking hitters on Pitcher List. Scott, we discussed some guys who are climbing the list ranks. Let's talk about some guys who are tumbling down. We'll start in Kansas City with infielder Maikel Garcia, falling several spots this week. What are we seeing out of Garcia?
Well, not much, right? So Garcia's been a top 150 hitter on the season in standard leagues, like sorta, right? Like he's been in the top 120s in terms of actual production, and that's just because the Royals lead him off every single day. So he does get runs scored, but he's neither showing power nor speed, right? So last season the speed was down, but the power was up, and we're like, man, if he puts that together, this is a really special guy. He also hit for average, which we've always felt he could do because he does hit the ball hard, and he is still hitting the ball fairly hard, right? But like the barrel rate is really, really low. It was always low. It was even low last season at 5.6%. But, a lot of that is just because he hits a lot of balls on the ground, right? It's just kind of what Maikel Garcia has always done, but he overcame that a bit last season, had a much better home run to fly ball rate. Part of that came from a slightly increased pull rate, especially on fly balls. He's not doing that anymore. He's not running much this season. He's never, he's still walking slightly above average, which is a change he started from last season, but it's just really hard to get that excited right now because he's just not doing that much of anything. He's not doing the things that made him really exciting last season. He's not running, which I don't know why. His on base percentage isn't good, but he stole 37 bases with a 281 OBP back in 2024. So between the Royals not being as aggressive with him on the base paths and, not really seeing that power quite yet, I'm, kind of seeing a boring hitter that is eligible everywhere and should score runs, but then what? Right. And it's been harder to score runs, of course, because Vinny Pasquantino hasn't done anything for the Royals this season. He already fell off the list. So, how is he going to score all those runs? It can't all be Bobby Witt Jr., right? Like, and as of right now, that offense is really like the fighting Bobby Witt Juniors. So he moves down just because I don't even know what to tell you to be excited about right now. Like, what part do I think is going to rebound? I don't even know. Like, maybe both of them a little bit, but then he just ends up being a really average hitter. Like, maybe he gets the power comes back a little, the speed comes back a little, but then he's what, like a 12 home run, 20 stolen base guy who hits 260, 270. That's fine. That's not a top 50 hitter.
We'll move on to the Los Angeles Angels outfield, where Jo Adell is falling down the ranks as well. Angels slumping a little bit with, Josh Lowe being sent to AAA, Moncada going to the IL, and now we've got, Jo Adell struggling as well. What are you seeing from Adell, and how could he bounce back potentially?
So it's great to see that Jo Adell isn't striking out a bunch. That had been his Achilles heel earlier. But he's also not walking very much. The strikeout rate is like hovering around 30% right now. It was a little better earlier in this season. He's not walking that much. And ultimately he's just he's still hitting the ball hard. Like, don't get me wrong there. Like, his average exit velocity is over 90 miles. It's actually almost identical to what it was last year. The hard hit rate is there. And if you look at the expected stats from Statcast, there has been a lot of bad luck here for Jo Adell, which, maybe is the thing. I don't love that the infield fly ball rate has almost doubled. Home run fly ball rate is way down. And the fact he's an outfielder on a team that's not going to score that many runs. So like getting to the 98 RBI he had last year, that's going to be really tough. Look, at any given point, it's possible that Jo Adell just starts hitting a whole bunch of home runs and climbs all the way back. But the patience to have with outfielders is lower. Now, he's not low enough to cut yet, but moving slightly towards that direction. Because on one hand, you drafted Jo Adell because you needed power. And compared to the guys on your wire, I severely doubt at this time that any of them have more power potential than Jo Adell, right? However, if you don't need the power so much, you start having a much more difficult question, which is, what do I want from Jo Adell? Because you certainly can't trade him anywhere. He just hasn't been good. So what do I want from Jo Adell? What do I do? I get this question a lot. What do I do right now with Jo Adell? You kind of just hold and hope he gets hot for a little bit. And then you can consider moving him or consider keeping him and have him fix your power problem that you may have, since you're not getting the home runs from Joe Adell. But I think the thing I really want to see is, like, how does the bad luck right now is nice in that it tells you it could be better, right? Things could be better. But at the same time, I do worry that it maybe not be that much better, right? Like, even if you take away all the bad luck, Joe Adell is still quite a bit worse than he was last season, right? So, like, then what happens, right? What do you do? And I hate when I don't know what to do with a guy. That's sort of been a theme for this whole show. I hate when I don't know what to do with a guy. I think the answer is easy if you have power, right? You're like, all right, well, I can just bench him for a while, see if things get better. He did hit a double today, he hit a home run the other day. Maybe this is the start of something. If you do need power, though, you're stuck in this place of, I just have to hold and start him because I don't want to miss the 2 or 3 home run game that I'm certain is coming at some point. So I'm trying. This ranking is almost a reaction of one of my own very real teams having a power issue, and Joe Adell is on it. And that's part of the reason I've got this power issue. And I'm kind of just sitting here going like, well, I guess I just keep starting him and getting this below average guy because none of the options on the waiver have this kind of power. Like, Ryan Waldschmidt was out there and I could have made a swap, but it's like, that doesn't give me what I need, right? I've got speed. I need power. And it's just not out there. So you're stuck with him. And we're getting to a point where if we're 2 weeks from now and he only has 0 to 1 more home runs in that stretch and the strikeout rate is still really high, then we start having to have the difficult conversation of, like, do you have to move on in 12-team 3 outfield leagues? We're not there yet, but it's worth noting that we're much closer to it now than we were 2-3 weeks ago.
Well, we already talked about Adley Rutschman. He's next on my list, but we'll move from one Angels outfielder to a former Angels outfielder, now an Orioles outfielder, Taylor Ward. Ward, despite the Orioles facing a ton of lefties, like you said, Ward is falling down the rankings. What's going on with Taylor Ward?
I am baffled at the lack of power from Taylor Ward. So he hit 36 home runs last year. He had 25 the year before. And I was like, that power was all real. Like, sure, the batting average was a little suspect, but this isn't like a ballpark thing or anything like that, right? Like, one thing that's really weird is Taylor Ward won't stop walking. Right now, he's walked a bit less of late, right? He was at one point, he was walking, like, his rolling chart, he was walking like 30-something% of the time over a 2-week period. It was insane. The strikeout rate has come up lately. The walk rate is down. So, like, over the last, 15 games or so, he's striking out close to 30% of the time, walking about 10%. I can live with that. That's the guy we saw last year. The problem is he's just not hitting home runs, right? And I don't understand. His bat speed is down. It was never high to begin with, but it is down, right? It's down about 2 ticks from where it was like 2 years ago, close to like a tick and a half from last year. But that's not enough to explain this, right? Like, he's not pulling the ball very well. That's maybe part of it, right? But he had this same exact batted ball distribution basically in 2025, and he hit 25 home runs. He has 2, and it's the end of May, right? The weirdest thing I see is a home run fly ball rate at 3.3%, right? That's like Luis Arraez home run fly ball rate. That is a slap hitter's home run fly ball rate, not what it should be for Taylor Ward, which should be somewhere in the teens, low teens, maybe high teens. I didn't think he'd hit 36 home runs again, but I thought he'd hit 30. Now I'm like, well, I hope he can get to 20. Right. And when you start looking at it that way, it's like, look, in an OBP league, he's kind of easy to keep because he's just been like carrying you in this category that he's never really been good at before. The OBP is so high that you can kind of hold him there. But if you need power, right, you expected 25 to 30 home runs. You expected like 10 of them by this point, and you've got 2, right? In a 12-team, 3 outfield league, and you need power, especially in a batting average league, I think you can move on if there's something out there. Don't just cut him for nothing. But if there's someone out there that, has shown some power upside and that's what you need, I'm okay with you chasing that. Again, is it possible that Taylor Ward like goes off and does some cool stuff and makes us regret that? Yeah, maybe, but you can't have FOMO about every player, right? Like that won't get you anywhere, right? Casey Schmitt is probably picked up, but if you need power, I think that's a direction I certainly would be starting with, right? I wouldn't do it for a guy like Jock Peterson, who is now like he DHs against every righty for Texas and he's hit some home runs lately and yada, yada, yada. I wouldn't do it for that. But if someone cut George Springer, that's one I'd probably go for. Nathaniel Lowe is a streaky lefty, but he's hitting again and he's got some home games coming up. He sits against lefties, but he could hit some home runs. Trent Grisham's a guy that in 12-team leagues is on and off everybody's, rosters right now. He's got power upside. I'd go look at that. There are shots you can take for power, and I don't think you have to hold. You don't have to hold Taylor Ward expecting the power come, because I don't, even if some luck stuff changes, I just don't see where it's coming from. He's just not hitting like that right now.
The last name we have on our fallers list this week is New York Mets infielder Mark Vientos. Vientos has 6 home runs this season, but has gone 50 plate appearances without hitting one. He hasn't hit a home run since May 14th. It's going on 2 weeks now. What do we do with Vientos?
Yeah, he's a faller. And actually, since you've looked at it, he's fallen right off the list. I actually removed Brett Baty, Marcus Semien, and Mark Vientos. They're all off, right? I took out almost the entire Mets infield. I'm tired of none of these guys being able to sustain anything for more than like a week or two, right? These are just streaky bats. They're not getting the job done. They're all moving down in the order. Vientos, he has hit, in the middle of the order when he's played. I think those days are just about over. I think Brett Baty is going to keep moving down. He hit 8th, recently against a lefty. I mean, I was surprised he was even in the lineup at all. Jorge Polanco is starting a rehab. He could be back soon to just start cutting playing time from all these guys, right? They might keep playing Semien because they don't have a choice, but like in fantasy, what am I even waiting for? Right? Like Marcus Semien looks every bit as bad as he did last season. Last season, he finished with 15 home runs, 11 stolen bases, and a 230 average. And he's right on pace to do that again. Right? So like, what do we want here? A hot streak to get him up to being a bad second baseman instead of a really bad one? In a standard league, you just can't. Again, I talk a lot about, the standard 12-team league. And I know I talked about this last week too, but someone was like, oh, those leagues are easy. No, those leagues are hard because you can't just hold everybody, right? In a 15-team league, like you just got to hold everybody and hope, right? Like, yeah, you'll make some aggressive bids on some rookies and stuff that come up, but otherwise it's like, yeah, I just got to hold because there's nothing on the wire. In a 12-team league, there is stuff on the wire, right? There are infielders out there. And if you want to cut Marcus Semien or Mark Vientos or Brett Baty because you're somehow still rostering them just to chase your tail a little bit and stream Blaze Alexander, fine, right? Like, I don't think he's necessarily all that much worse, right? I think Jackson Holliday showed some interesting things, even though there's been a bunch of lefties. I was really worried about Jackson Holliday's exit velocity in his minor league rehab, but they've been a lot better since he's been up in the major leagues. He's hitting the ball pretty well. So, if Jackson Holliday was cut, I would certainly be going after that, right? Like there's probably options on your wire in a 12-team league that are just, Jackson would be far more interesting than Blaze Alexander. But like there's names out there, right? Like Casey Schmitt, probably not still out there, but others are, Angel Martinez has really fallen off. So I might avoid that, but like Brooks Lee is not any worse than those, Mets infielders. Ernie Clement has been quite good lately. If you need speed, Nasim Nunez can steal bases. Luis Garcia Jr. is really streaky and up and down, but he's certainly not worse than those guys. The guy that's made the list kind of out of nowhere, once a top 25 prospect out of Australia, Curtis Mead, right? Curtis Mead has all of a sudden become the almost everyday third baseman for the Nats. And now he's batting second and third, right? The plate discipline's been fantastic. The batting average kind of stinks because it's just going to, that's the kind of hitter he is. But he's barreling the ball kind of out of nowhere. The hard hit rate's way up. Curtis Mead's doing interesting stuff. And maybe some of it's luck driven, but I would absolutely rather take a chance on Curtis Mead, who can cover all the positions that Batty, Vientos, and Semien do. Cut them all. I'd much rather see if what Curtis Mead is doing is real at all, right? Like on one hand, you might think, well, the Tampa Bay Rays wouldn't get rid of somebody good, and he was terrible for them. But the Nats have become an offense. These guys are hitting, right? And I thought it was weird they cut Brady House. We talked about that last week. But now, seeing Curtis Mead, I'm like, maybe they just saw something in Curtis Mead, right? He's getting to bat third. It's right between, James Wood and CJ Abrams, who are hitting the ball really well. Let's see what former top 25 prospect Curtis Mead has, right? Go make that ad over Marcus Semien, over Brett Batty, over Mark Vientos, over, a lot of guys on the sort of back end of the, if you had Angel Martinez and he's been real cold the last 2 weeks, playing him at second base, cut him, go get Mead, right? Give that a whirl. You want to burn and churn here. And, Mead's got great plate discipline, especially in OBP leagues. You should be doing it. He's got a great spot in the batting order on a team that's extremely aggressive and hitting the ball well of late. And they've put him right in the middle of all that. They're not really platooning him anywhere. Give it a whirl. Let's see what happens.
Beautiful. Scott, we're out of time this week. Tell the people where to find you and your work.
Yeah. So obviously, the Reddit AMA will be on Friday, which is when this posts. So same day. I usually post it sometime before 2:00 or so, between noon and 2. So Eastern time. So that'll be out on Reddit. The hitter list will also publish the same day as this podcast. This time it'll usually be Thursdays, but this time it's Friday because I just had a bunch of other work stuff come up. And you can also find me on Twitter at If the Chew Fits. I am on Blue Sky, scottchu.pitcherlist.com. I haven't been super active on those things lately. I apologize. I'm going to try to, I recently posted some rolling charts. I'll try to get some more of those out there for you all to see, because they're really the heart of the analysis I do, to see if guys are going up and down. I mean, that's what my belief in Jordan Walker entirely comes from, a rolling chart, right? That's where it is. Because anyone can be hot for a little bit, but not everyone can recover. That's what he's doing, and that's what rolling charts show me. So that's where you can find me. And again, this list that comes out every Thursday, maybe once in a while on Friday.
Beautiful. You can find me, Brett Ford, at Fade That Man on social media, in the Pitcher List Discord, in the QB List Discord, recording QB List podcast with Jay Felicio, and of course, writing my under-rostered players in Points League column, publishing on Mondays on pitcherlist.com. Thanks for tuning in to Hacks and Jacks. Appreciate you guys listening. As always, 150 episodes, Scott. Congratulations. And we'll catch you guys next time. Later.
Woo.